take us through a story, the next story that kind of really shaped and kind of fills in the gaps of how GPRS got off the ground.
Yeah, so I had to introduce the technology to the market. I mean, this was before Google. Before, it was probably not before Google, but it was before Google was a thing. Before people were regularly using it, and we didn't even have a website for the company. I literally had a business card and a really crappy trifold brochure. So all I would do is, if I didn't have a job, I would go usually up to Detroit, just knocking on doors and try to convince people to give this kid a shot with next time they have to cut or drill. And I would also work with the dispatcher from Ohio Concrete Sawing and say, hey, where are you sending the team tomorrow? And I'd try to show up ahead of where they're going to be cutting. I'd just pick a job. I would prioritize hospitals and universities. And I'd go ahead of where they're cutting, and I would try to find out where I would mark electrical lines or whatever I could find that was in the path of that cutting. That worked really well. I did a job at St. Joe's Hospital in Ypsilanti, Michigan. It wasn't a job. Ohio Concrete was going to be working there. And I went ahead of them before they cut this trench and marked a few things. The next day, my phone rings, and I said, Matt, my name is Jim Hansen. I'm facilities engineer from St. Joe's Hospital in Ypsilanti. He said, I think you were up here yesterday, and you were marking some stuff on our floor before Ohio Concrete, cut this trench. Can you tell me what you were doing and what you were using? And I said, well, yeah, I'm starting this business. It's called Ground Penetrating Radar Systems, and I was working with the dispatcher. She told me that Ohio Concrete was going to be, at your facility. And so I just went ahead and tried to mark a few things that might be in the path of that trench to try to, hopefully they avoid hitting any electrical. He said, well, you did. You marked a 480 volt conduit that we would have cut right through had you not done this. He said, did we hire you, or are you getting paid for this? And I said, no, I'm practicing, and he said, well, you did a good job on this one. And he said, we'd like to see this. We'd like to see, how this works. So I went back up, and they had a group of 8 or 10 people. And over the next 5 or 6 years, I bet I worked at that hospital 2 or 3 times a week. It was a couple hundred jobs, but that's what it was. It was a lot of these just chance encounters that you get when you just go and knocking on doors. And the best one that we've told a lot of times and throughout GPRS is it was December 23rd, 2001, and I was up in Detroit all day, selling. And I was on the way home coming down 275, and I saw this tower crane at the Detroit airport. And there were not a lot of cranes back then. It was, this is 3 months after 9/11, just before Christmas, and there was just not a lot of work going on. But they were building this McNamara terminal, the new Delta terminal at the Detroit airport. So I saw this crane, and I said, I'm just going to go over and see if I can figure out what it is. And I could not tell what the building was, but I saw it was all concrete, and I could see post-tension cables coming out of the side of the building. So this kind of made a mental note that hey, I'm going to need to come back here after Christmas and see if I can talk to somebody about if there's a need for a GPR on this job. So drove south out of the airport onto Eureka Road, and happened to drive. I noticed the construction trailers, so I pulled into the parking lot, and there was a gate there. It was open, so I just went through, and there was only one car. I mean, all the trailers were basically locked up and empty. People had gone home for the night, and with Christmas only 2 days away, they were out. But there was one car left, and it was a nice car. I think it was a BMW, and so I walked into the trailer that car was parked at, and there was one guy there, and he happened to be the project executive for Walbridge Aldinger, who was the lead contractor, for that building that I noticed with the post tension cables coming out. So I handed him this brochure that I was proud of at that time, but I'd be embarrassed of today. And he puts his hand up like this, like, just quit talking, let me read this. So he's reading it, and I think he's just appeasing me, just saying, hey, I'll take a look. But I knew I was going to get kicked out of the trailer. But he took his glasses off. He looks up at me and says, are you telling me that you can use this to find post tension cables? And I said, that's like the primary application for what we're doing. And he said, all right, I need you to come back here after the new year, and you're going to have to give us some demonstrations on how this works, because that hotel has 400 rooms in it, and the architects in Boston, the engineers in Atlanta, and our job is here in Detroit. And I just got notified that I have to move every toilet flange, every tub drain, every sink drain, all the water lines for every bathroom in that hotel. And we've already poured the slabs, the post-tension cables are already in. Clearly I can't cut them. So we've got to figure out what we're going to do. So I did just that. After the first of the year, I called him back. He set up a demonstration, and one demonstration turned into 5 or 6. The unique thing about that story is every single time I went back, there was a guard at that gate, and then you had to have a badge that hung from the rear view mirror. And if I didn't have that badge, I would not have been granted access into that trailer city. And but he was gone that night on December 23rd when I stopped by. There was no guard, and that's what gave me the access. I don't know what would have happened if had there been a guard there at that time. But what happened with the job was I wound up convincing them, somehow that I knew what I was doing. I could handle this job, and they gave me a contract to mark all of the reinforcing steel in each bathroom in that hotel. It turned into a lot more than that, because they added a water feature, and there's a big atrium. They added a water feature, and they had to drill dowels for the masonry wall around the water feature. And so that whole atrium lobby, I had to scan almost the entire floor. And it was over $100,000 worth of work. It was the best sales stop that I've ever had. And that was the kind of the idea behind this One More Stop initiative that we've put out through GPRS, where at the end of the day, at the end of your job, don't just leave, make one more stop. If you're working for the general, call on the electrician and the plumber, just let them know who you are and why you're there, or who you're working for, what you're doing. And, we just want to help. So I think that's when my confidence increased that, hey, maybe there's something here, but it wasn't smooth sailing for as soon as that job was done. I did that work from February of 2002 until about October of 2002, maybe 3 days a week, and gave me the cash flow to hire John Kessinger, and John moved over to Cleveland. So we had 2 people in GPRS by July of 2002. And but it wasn't smooth sailing after that. I mean, it was pretty choppy. And I told the Alps, I mean, there was a lot of this for the next several years. But that was the when I think of the most meaningful job in the history of the company, to me that's what it is.